Now, you can always be sure it's Equity calling. When we call you, we will use only this number, 0763 000 000. Always be sure it is Equity calling.
It's Wednesday, the 18th day of August 2021. Good evening and welcome to Newswatch on Hope TV, where you look and live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tess Njenga and my sign language interpreter is Boniface Mureithi. These are the day's stories, and we will be having an interview in studio with Rogers Odima, who is a leadership and management consultant and founder of CEO Forum Kenya. We will be discussing the effects of COVID-19 on the economy. But before that, let's look at major stories making headlines today. President Uhuru Kenyatta has today reviewed the COVID-19 containment measures, speaking from State House, Mombasa, where he met a cross-section of political party leaders. The president has suspended political gatherings for a further 60 days and lifted curfew measures in the 13 counties referred to as hotspot zones.
I, Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, upon the advice of the National Security Council and in keeping with the recommendations of the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19, do hereby issue this revised statement of containment measures via this Public Order number 5 of 2021 on the coronavirus pandemic as follows. 1, that the hours of curfew in the territory of the Republic of Kenya shall continue to be observed from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. for a further containment period of 60 days. Consequently, the differentiated curfew hours and specific restrictions for the previously identified COVID-19 hotspot zones of Kisumu, Siaya, Homa Bay, Migori, Busia, Kakamega, Vihiga, Bungoma, Kisii, Nyamira, Kericho, Bomet, and Trans Nzoia counties are lifted, and these counties will now observe the nationwide curfew prescriptions as specified herein. That all physical and in-person public gatherings and meetings, including political rallies and campaign meetings for impending by-elections, are hereby suspended with immediate effect for a period of 60 days. That all other social gatherings, including weddings, celebrations of marriage or traditional unions, ceremonies of rites of passage, funeral or cremation ceremonies, and or other similar events or ceremonies shall strictly be attended by immediate family members and at any rate adhere to the 100-person attendance limit as prescribed. 4, that in addition to the prevailing guidelines on funeral and interment ceremonies, and to further enhance compliance with the guidelines thereto, officiators and proprietors of funeral homes are to strictly adhere to the prescribed 96 hours of confirmation of death and secure processing for burial within this period, failure to which appropriate action against management, staff, and premises shall be taken where exceptions are not justified. And 5, that places of worship nationwide shall continue to strictly adhere to the 1/3 rule for in-person worship and congregational worship and protocols of hygiene and social distance within the guidelines of the Interfaith Council. And 6, that the operations of bars, restaurants, and eateries shall continue as guided by the Ministry of Health guidelines, failure to which appropriate action against management, staff, patrons, and premises shall be taken.
And civil society organization Linda Katiba Initiative has raised concerns over the increasing cases of extrajudicial killings and corruption in the country. The organization, alongside religious groups and other civil organizations, addressed the press in Nairobi over the state of the nation, where they also called on the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission to prepare how best to manage the upcoming 2022 general election. Here's Grace Wangoi with more.
The period between now and the general elections is expected to be a heated one, as several stakeholders expected to throw their hat in the ring in crucial affairs of the nation. Speaking during a joint forum of religious organizations and members of civil society, NARC Kenya party leader Martha Karua called on the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission to begin an all-inclusive negotiation that incorporates Kenyans to ensure they adequately prepare to conduct a free and fair election in the next year's general elections.
As Kenyans, we have a right to public participation. We have as a direct say in matters that affect us. So apart from having representatives, the Electoral Commission need to invite stakeholders to have a chance to participate in planning and managing the next general election.
Headline heaters of extrajudicial killings have been flagged by the Linda Katiba Initiative, who are now calling on persons involved to be brought to book, even as government agencies step up to ensure the matter is brought to an end. Ford Kenya's Chris Wamalwa, speaking during the One Kenya Alliance press briefing in Naivasha on Tuesday, addressing the same matter, shunned the ongoing killings and called for justice to be given to the families who have experienced death of their loved ones.
We are deeply concerned about the ongoing extrajudicial killings. We've seen this happening in Embu, Kitengela, and we call upon the relevant authorities, particularly the Independent Police Oversight Authority, to move with speed.
The menace of corruption is nothing new to Kenya. Despite several names being mentioned, a majority of culprits walk scot-free. Former anti-graft agency boss PLO Lumumba, during the same forum, says corruption will drag the country to the gutter. He called on Kenyan electorate to make informed choices, not be moved with handouts that are usually given in the electioneering period.
Corruption is going to destroy us because, and those of you who have been in the political arena, even when you don't want it, in some way, the electorate will make sure that you give them money that they don't deserve.
Additionally, Lumumba, seemingly disturbed with the culture of politicians making political addresses in churches, has called for the clergy to be courageous and bring the growing culture to an end.
I've gone into a church in this country where a politician who is a known thief, I'll not talk about him, there are many, and because there are many of them, is entering the church in my rural home, and the clergyman stops in the middle of a sermon and says, "Let us welcome so-and-so." And immediately that happens, he is invited to the pulpit to desecrate the pulpit, When a country has reached those levels, then that country needs not only prayers but action. And I hope that we still, and I know there are still clergy in this country who can muster the courage that I used to see with Bishop Okulu, the courage that I used to see with Bishop Gitari, the courage that I saw with Alexander Kipsang Muge, the courage that I saw with Father Ndikaru Teresia, the courage that I saw with Raphael Ndingi Mwana Wanzeki, the courage that you mastered yourself, Bishop Adoye, when you were at the CITAM.
Grace Wangoi for Hope TV Newswatch.
Yet the Treasury proposes.
Thank you, Grace, for that report. Taking a look at COVID-19 numbers today, 1,506 people have tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 9,840 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is 15.3%, with total confirmed positive cases at 224,400 and cumulative tests so far conducted are 2,278,763. Fortunately, 1,538 patients recovered from the coronavirus, and total recoveries now stand at 207,450. However, 24 patients succumbed to the disease, one of them in the last 24 hours, while 23 are late deaths reported after conducting facility record audits in July and August 2021. This pushes the cumulative fatalities to 4,378. A total of 2,054 patients are currently admitted in various health facilities countrywide, while 8,408 are under the home-based isolation and care program. 161 patients are in the intensive care unit, 86 of whom are on ventilator support and 75 on supplemental oxygen. On county distribution for the top 10, Nairobi is leading with 512, Kiambu 162, Nakuru 93, Mombasa 89, Nyandarua 88, Makueni 68, Machakos 64, Murang'a 47, Embu 47, and Kajiado 41. We now go to our interview segment with the topic of economic effects of COVID-19. We know that COVID-19 has destroyed the livelihoods of many Kenyans economically, with some losing their jobs and others' businesses going under. And we have the famous new normal phrase, which seems to have brought with it drastic effects. In studio, we have with us Rogers Odima, who is leadership and management consultant and founder of the CEO Forum Kenya. We want to get his take on this new normal. What's your take?
Yes, the situation definitely has changed since Corona was reported last year. And many organizations have been affected economically. Of course, you know, last year, apart from what was described as essential services, most of organizations closed. And of course, that really affected the operations. Can you imagine organizations such as private schools that completely closed? You know, that really affected their income. So that has been a challenge since COVID was reported last year.
Thank you. And it seems that the impact of COVID-19 varies from country to country, in that it has affected each country differently. And organizations have also been making different profits, others making losses. According to you, what do you think makes the difference between the companies and countries that are doing well in this pandemic from those that are struggling?
Definitely, there is an element of risk. And some countries are more risky than others. So I think that's what I'll say. You know, some are more vulnerable than others. So that is really, and of course, some companies are also more vulnerable than others. So that's where the challenge is. Some, of course, are more resilient. So it is that's how they are facing the COVID situation better.
For example, in the African countries, we can see that we are depending on vaccines, and many people have become unemployed. Others that were working in places like Dubai and the Gulf, the Arabian countries where some of the people in Kenya go, have been coming back to Kenya, but there are countries that look like they are thriving. What would you comment about that?
Yes, definitely. If you are already strong, it's just like also our bodies. When you are weak, remember even COVID we have been told many times that if you have underlying causes, you are more prone to the disease. But also there are countries with better shocks. I'll call them shock absorbers than others. Of course, if you have had a stronger economy, you are in a better position than if you have had a weak economy. So that's really the difference. Do you have strong shock absorbers, or yours is, already you are in a weak position? So of course, when a crisis comes, it completely knocks you off.
So what are some of the practical ways that organizations can keep afloat and not be submerged as a result of this pandemic?
As a leadership and management consultant, I think the first thing is really what I would call planning. When COVID came, the strategic plans, a lot of strategic plans were affected. So now what we need is what we call scenario planning, so that you are able to plan, or contingency planning. And I know many organizations right now have revised their strategic plans. It used to be so obvious that it will be 5 or so years, but now people are kind of, because of contingency planning, they are only trying to forward it to maybe 2-3 years. I mean, planning in terms of 2-3 years. Of course, the second thing is to be innovative. It's very good to be innovative. And you know very well, one of the innovations that has come during COVID is working from home, online, Zoom meetings. So this has been something that was never there before COVID came. In fact, a lot of organizations have actually surrendered some of the office space. So because many of the workers are working from home. So the more people do bring innovations, the more you find that people will be able to cope. So of course, COVID has shown us it should not be business as usual. It definitely should not be business as usual. Many organizations need to be creative and innovative and even adapt to the various to the various crises that has been, come as a result of COVID.
Let's look at the debt burden we find ourselves as a country. What can be done on a leadership level? We have seen, especially in this season, politicians are talking about the bottom-up economy, trickle-down economy. Which model do you think works best for the country and the citizens?
I think economics has very, basic, what I would call, premises. You need to look at the demand factors. You need also to look at the supply factors. Now, of course, when COVID came, like I said, a lot of organizations, were closed, especially the ones that were regarded as non-essential services. So for me, the issue here is, for me, I don't think there's a single prescription, what we can call, like what you're saying, bottom-up or triple whatever economy. For me, I think let's just go back to the economic fundamentals. How can we increase our productivity? Productivity of agriculture, productivity of manufacturing, productivity of the construction sector, productivity of the service sector. So if we focus on the fundamentals of what I call productivity, for me, it will be better than focusing on some of these terms we are calling bottom-up or triple economics. For me, let us just focus on the fundamentals, and the fundamentals for me is how do we increase productivity? For me, that's what is important.
Thank you. And we have also witnessed fuel prices fluctuating in the past, but have remained unchanged in the latest review, with the cost of living remaining high. What will you advise Kenyans on cushioning themselves against the effects of the pandemic?
One of the things, of course, is now we realize, just like I said, just like organizations now have contingency planning, organizations are reducing waste. So even I think at an individual level, If there are things you can, certain waste you can reduce, I think for me that will be very good in terms of responding to the shocks. And of course, then, like I said also earlier, if you can diversify, some of your sources of income, that can also help. And also, of course, being Christians is also good for us to come together, support each other. And I know many churches have done very, very well in terms of supporting the vulnerable members of their congregations. So that issue of coming together, teaming up together, and facing this crisis together will really lighten the burden on many, many Kenyans.
Well, lastly, as you give us your parting shots, what's your take on the ongoings in Afghanistan, Kabul? You know, there is a crisis there since the US pulled its troops and the leadership has failed to be able to put the country together, knowing that it's a hub of oil. How might it affect the economy, especially in terms of fuel?
Well, personally, I'm not sure that Afghanistan really is a major supplier of oil to even the various regions. But of course, we need to pray for that country, Afghanistan, especially because the Taliban are what we call the very extreme, what you can call those, extreme, they follow what I call extreme Islamism. So let's pray that, the people in that country, especially even the women in that country, because there are many restrictions. Taliban put very many restrictions on the women of that country. Let us pray for them, that God will be able to help them and shield them. And of course, then for the Christians who are in Afghanistan, my prayer is that we'll pray for them, that God will also continue to protect them, even as this change is taking place.
Thank you very much. This is Rogers Odima, who is Leadership and Management Consultant and founder of CEO Forum Kenya, discussing the economic effects of COVID-19 on the economy. Much appreciated for your insights there. And on that note, let's take our first commercial break on Newswatch tonight. We have plenty more stories coming your way, so keep it Hope TV.
Now, you can always be sure it's Equity calling. When we call you, we will use only this number, 0763 000 000. Always be sure it is Equity calling.
This week on Turning Point.
Because God has called us and we are His children, the incidents in our lives are not incidental. Did you know that? We are God's children. The trials of our lives are not trivial. When you look at what's going on in your life, God is up to something. He has called you. You love Him. You're in this relationship, and God is working in your life. He's working all things together. He's stirring the mix so that what happens in your life is for His glory and for your good. He is using even setbacks to advance your spiritual maturity. Some of the things that you think are the most negative may be the most productive. This is the best promise in the Bible. This is the best promise in life.
That's this week on Turning Point by Dr. David Jeremiah.
A very warm welcome back. The Court of Appeal is on Friday expected to issue a ruling on the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, days after a battle was witnessed in the court with both BBI parties arguing in their favor. The Court of Appeal says the BBI judgment will be read by the 7 judges in open court due to the COVID-19 protocols, with only 16 lawyers allowed in the court as the rest follow proceedings online. Dickens Luvanda has this report.
Everyone knows that the BBI is good. It's good for our country. It is even good for those people who are unhappy with it. But too many Kenyans have embraced fear of change over the need to continuously strive for a more fair, just, peaceful, cohesive, and democratic Kenya. Fellow Kenyans, as I said of the judiciary, their decisions must consider the letter of the law, but fundamentally, the spirit of the law must also guide them.
The much-anticipated BBI appeal ruling is expected to be delivered in an open court on Friday this week from 9:30 a.m. The Court of Appeal has issued a communication to both parties saying the judgment will be read by the 7 judges. The 7 judges were appointed by the Court of Appeal President Justice Daniel Musinga to hear and determine 5 appeals filed against the High Court ruling that declared the BBI null and void.
There is only one law that man cannot change, and that would be the law of God.
Court of Appeal Deputy Registrar Lorraine Ogombe says only 16 lawyers will be allowed in the court due to the COVID-19 pandemic, while the rest will follow proceedings online, and each side should select 8 lawyers who will be in court.
For the record, my lord,
the parties have until the end of Wednesday, August 18th, to choose and forward the names of the 16 lawyers to the court.
Did the president initiate it in his personal capacity or in the official capacity?
Justice Musinga will be the presiding judge on the bench that will determine the fate of the President Uhuru Kenyatta's BBI, while other judges are drawn from various court stations, including Justice Roslyn Nambuye, Hannah Okwengu, Patrick Kiagi, Gatembu Kairu, Fatuma Sishale, and Francis Toyot. The judges have been on a 50-day retreat, writing the ruling. ODM party leader Raila Odinga, who alongside President Kenyatta are the brainchild of the BBI, while speaking in Nakuru County on Tuesday, said he will respect the decision of the court on Friday.
Tangoja uamuzi ya mahakama ya mambo ya BBI, sawa? Wakiamua vizuri, sawa. Wakiamua kingine, sawa. Lakini nobody can stop.
Odinga has since ruled out appealing the anticipated decision of the Court of Appeal, saying they will not move to the Supreme Court to challenge an unfavorable verdict, but will instead concentrate on preparing for the 2022 general elections.
BBI haisaidii Raila na familia yake. BBI haisaidii Uhuru. BBI ni ya kusaidia wananchi wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, na ndipo nawauliza kwa heshima kubwa, jameni, mukubali mujitokeze muiunge mkono. Yale ambaye yako mbele yetu tutatatua, mimi najua.
BBI critics led by Deputy President William Ruto have occasionally poked holes in the BBI process, saying the quest to amend the 2010 constitution only seeks to create positions for a few individuals in the political arena.
We destroyed Jubilee, the ruling party. It destroyed NASA, the opposition coalition. It sabotaged the Big Four plan. It created a big charade called BBI. We lost 4 years as a nation chasing the wind called BBI. Today, we are net losers. We lost the ruling party. We lost the opposition party. We lost the development program under Big Four. Now we have lost even this charade called BBI. Kenya has lost 4 years, precious years, which could have been used to do something meaningful.
Dickens Luvanda, Hope TV Newswatch.
Thank you, Dickens, for that report. Now, Kenya will on Monday, August 23rd, receive 1.7 million doses of the 2-dose Moderna vaccine from the United States through the global COVAX facility, as well as 390,000 doses of the much-awaited Johnson & Johnson vaccine from the African Union. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses are among a cumulative 13 million doses that shall be relayed to the country in several consignments. According to the Ministry of Health, over 2 million Kenyans have been vaccinated against coronavirus, with plans underway to vaccinate at least 10 million by December as the country continues battling with the virus. Dolly Murigi with more details.
In the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, the government is trying hard to vaccinate the population now that the country is ravaging the Delta variant. Kenya received 407,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine from the United Kingdom on Tuesday night, having received the initial batch 2 weeks ago, with the latest consignment set to boost the ongoing efforts by the Ministry of Health to vaccinate more Kenyans.
We anticipate to receive 1.7 million doses of Moderna in a week's time from now. We also anticipate to get close to 393,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson single-shot vaccine in the 3rd week of August, again 1 to 2 weeks from now. We anticipate to get another 1.7 million doses of Pfizer vaccine through the COVAX facility in the 1st week or 2nd week of September.
So far, the Ministry of Health says over 2 million Kenyans have been vaccinated against the virus, with the plans underway to vaccinate at least 10 million people by December. The latest consignment has raised the number of vaccines received in the country to 2,730,100, with at least 754,542 people having received the second doses by Tuesday. The proportion of adults fully vaccinated now stands at 2.8%. For the first time, Kenya will receive different types of vaccines on Monday, 23rd August. While receiving the vaccines at the JKIA, Health Acting Director General Patrick Amoth said that the country is expecting 1.7 million doses of Moderna, 393,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and 1.8 million doses of Pfizer vaccine in September this year. With the donation Kenya is receiving, the chairman of Kenya Vaccine Task Force, Dr. Willis Sakwale, says that the country is on track to build a capacity to vaccinate 150,000 people every day. Distribution of the vaccines to counties shall be done 2 to 3 days after their arrival, and the vaccination shall begin in the same week. Recently, the Ministry of Health Acting Director General Dr. Patrick Amoth cited the possibility of Kenya to practice mix and match with the Pfizer vaccine.
If you get Pfizer vaccine, there's nothing that will stop us from practicing mix and match.
Dolly Mirigi for Hope TV News Watch.
Thank you, Dolly, for that report. The body of the late nominated Jubilee Senator Victor Prengei has been moved to Lee Funeral Home in Nairobi after the lawmaker succumbed to injuries that he sustained from a road accident on Monday. Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka led a group of senators in paying tribute to the late senator, where they remembered the deceased as a hard-working leader who championed land rights for the minority communities. Velma Muresa has the details.
Grief, shock and sadness filled the environment at Lee Funeral Home as friends and family stood in disbelief of the incident that found the Jubilee-nominated Senator Victor Prengei. Reports say Prengei was involved in a self-involved accident, which means his vehicle did not run into any other oncoming vehicle. Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka said Prengei's death has resulted in a big loss for the Senate and Kenya's leadership. Lusaka expressed his condolences to the family and friends while praising Prengei as a determined and focused leader who only played his part fairly by being one of the best decision-making partners in the Senate Assembly.
On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I want to convey our sincere message of condolence to the family, friends and relatives for this big loss. Prengei has been with us in the Senate. He's been a very calm fellow, a senator who was very, very passionate about land matters. Remember, he comes from a minority, and anytime he stood to talk or pursued anything, it had to do with land matters, and no wonder he was the vice chair of the Committee of Lands and Environment. I remember him so well, especially during the BBI discussions. He's the one we called upon after everybody had contributed. He's the one we called upon to conclude or end the debate on the BBI.
On his part, Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen recognized Prengei's work of advocating land rights for the minority groups.
It was already because the community recognized the work he was doing on behalf of the minority groups. And I want to say that it was a greatest privilege and honor for us to have Senator Prengei as part and parcel of our Senate. He was the vice chair of Lands Committee. was the vice chair of Energy Committee. He chaired the committee several times when the chair was not there. Senator Mutula was reminding me here that some of the very interesting moments of land compensation issues in Makueni and other parts of the country was because of his effort and his knowledge and experience. Senator Prenge has left his mark in history. He will be remembered.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, Prenge's party leader, also eulogized the late as a brilliant leader who only worked tirelessly for the welfare of youth in Kenya and minority groups. For Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Velma Moresa.
Much appreciated, Velma. Garissa County Health CEC Roble Nono has refuted claims that Northeastern Province NEP Girls Secondary School has been closed after their matron succumbed to COVID-19 and 3 students tested positive for the virus. Speaking at his office, Roble said some parents panicked and took their children home and were asked to report back. Nano further noted that the health department is going to conduct mass testing for 2 more schools in Garissa Township after a couple of 2 teachers teaching in different schools tested positive for the virus. He called for strict adherence to COVID-19 prevention guidelines following reports of rising infections in the county, and urged the citizens to avail themselves for mass vaccination in all sub-county hospitals and the Garissa General Hospital.
We have allowed those that have illegal firearms to surrender, and most of them have surrendered in the previous times that we have had those programs. But currently, we are seeing an emergence of more illegal firearms, which we are committed as the national government, with other partners, with the county government and all stakeholders, to ensure that we disarm these guys who are armed.
If we can guide them on the alternatives of when we have drought, on what we ought to do, zile maproti tunaona zinanunuliwa hapa ni za wakulima, zile maploti machama makubwa ni za wakulima. So there is time for grazing, there can be time for alternatives.
I support the initiative that we continue with the peace engagements. But even as we do that, Governor, Your Excellencies, we must also ask ourselves, is it really right that a few criminals are allowed to roam around with arms? With arms. Because the people who are killing us are actually armed, sometimes armed more than the government.
I want to announce that the drought situation in the region of the 4 counties, termed as Amaya, or Cooperation for Peace and Development, has been persistent as a result of inconsistent rains for the better part of this year. Planning for an off-take program within the 4 counties. This, as it has been indicated today, that requires a budgetary aspect, and that we have called upon all of us that during supplementary, we ensure that we put this item to address this. We have also called upon the National Assembly to ensure that they also consider giving a budget to that sector, especially to KMC, to assist our region on off-take program. What we want to urge is, please let us not enter into somebody's land without agreement. The county government will facilitate that agreement through the Secretariat.
Leaders from the pastoralist community have urged the National Assembly to allocate more money to the Kenya Meat Commission to help them in livestock offtake program. The leaders from Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo and Isiolo counties noted that the drought situation in the Amaya counties that has been brought about by inconsistent rains for the better part of the year has seen mass movement of livestock which has resulted in an escalation of conflict in the region. Members of County Assembly led by Kipruto Kimosop and George Kariru, who were also in the meeting, called for disarmament, noting that the presence of illegal firearms has escalated conflict in the region.
We have allowed those that have illegal firearms to surrender, and most of them have surrendered in the previous times that we have had those programs. But currently, we are seeing an emergence of more illegal firearms, which we are committed as the national government, with the other partners, with the county government and all stakeholders, to ensure that we disarm these guys who are armed.
If we can guide them on the alternatives of when we have drought, on what we ought to do. Zile maploti tunaona zinanunuliwa hapa ni za wakulima. Zile maploti mashamba makubwa ni za wakulima. So there is time for grazing, there can be time for alternatives.
I support the initiative that we continue with the peace engagements. But even as we do that, Governor, Your Excellencies, we must also ask ourselves, is it really right that a few criminals are allowed to roam around with arms? With harms, because the people who are killing us are actually.
We apologize for that mix-up in stories. Moving on, Kirinyaga County Assembly Women Caucus has condemned the rising cases of rape in the county. Speaking at County Assembly chambers, the MCAs said the surge in number of rape cases reported is worrying. Led by their chairperson Lillian Gitari, the caucus has called upon the security sector and ensured the culprits are arrested and charged in court, saying it's time to find a long-lasting solution and the root cause if it's alcohol. Caroline Muriithi said the victims are innocent school kids, giving an example of a class 4 pupil raped and killed at Kimunye in Gichungu constituency. She called the Inspector General of Police to do everything to ensure the children are safe. The youth representative Joylisa Njagi said the security organs should intervene to protect innocent children. She further called upon mothers to protect their children in and out of their homes.
I want to condemn the act that happened at Kemunye last week of a baby girl who is only 4 years old, who was raped and killed. That girl was abducted on her way to school, and she never reached school. She never went back to her parents. We want to condemn that act with the strongest ones possible. And I want to ask the Inspector General of Police, let us see something being done by our security organs. Otherwise, we'll take action against whoever will be identified, whoever will be even suspected to have done something like that.
We do not know what is happening in Kirinyaga. We do not know what is happening to our men in Kirinyaga. So I'm calling upon the security organs, all of them, kindly come out strongly and arrest these men. Let us find also a solution to what is happening. Is it drugs? Is it alcohol? What is the problem? Is it lack of morals? Is this depression that is causing these issues?
Mothers, let us ensure that we protect our children. Let us not leave them to be on their own, especially on their way to school and coming back from the school. We need to work together as a community. We say that children are brought up by the village. Kirinyaga, we are in literally a village. Let us take care of our children. Let us protect them. We need to work with the schools to ensure that they are releasing the children to people that they know, and we ensure that parents are only sending people they trust and they know to go and pick up their children from school.
On that note, let's take our second commercial break on News Watch. Tonight, we have international and business news coming up after the break.
This Friday on Live Chat at 10 p.m.
Behind every music, there is a spirit.
there's something that propels that particular music.
What is one of the things that you think is very impractical that your parents tell you they never used to do, but they see you doing now?
What my dad will listen to is not what I'd listen to.
What you'd listen to.
What my mom would listen to, I feel like I can listen to what my mom listens to.
What your mother listens to, you can resonate with that.
Yeah, I feel like I can resonate with that.
There are jeans, jeans trousers that you can put on and you're wondering, where did I even get this? Yet it is a trouser.
At times we make it sound like they've done absolutely, but they've done an amazing job. It's just that the few things that they've not done, the Omebant big time.
Oh, they noted that. I want to understand what you guys find very interesting about the kind of punishments that your parents want to administer and how you feel you would do it differently.
Only on Hope TV, where you look and live.
Welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The new chair of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, and Malawi President Lazarus Chakwera has called for an end to unequal distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. Speaking during the meeting of African heads of state and government, Chakwera underscored the importance of supplying the vaccines to all nations regardless of who discovered it. The president says that the vaccines are crucial to saving lives and must be distributed fairly across the world. The regional bloc has expressed delight in Zambia's ability to conduct elections that ensured a seamless transfer of power.
The inequalities and disparities we are seeing in the distribution and production of COVID-19 vaccines are symptomatic of an old geopolitical framework that is no longer working, no longer sustainable, and no longer acceptable. So the time has come for us to insist that a vaccine that preserves and sustains a person's basic right to life belongs to all nations, no matter who discovered it.
Libya's Electoral Commission has closed the online voter registration poll after 2.8 million eligible voters recorded their information. The country is preparing for a national election in December this year, seeking to end fragmentations that have been responsible for the chaos witnessed since the death of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The commission was expected to receive the number of voters from overseas by 6 p.m. on Wednesday evening. The North African country, with a population of 7 million people, will be closely monitored as the polling nears to see if they will chart a new dawn. Further afield, officials have reported that about 2,000 people have died in Haiti from Saturday's 7.2 magnitude earthquake, which is a rise of more than 500 on the previous figure. According to officials, rescue workers have managed to pull 38 people alive from the rubble, but many are still missing after the 7.2 magnitude quake. The search for survivors has been hampered by heavy rains brought this week by Tropical Storm Grace. Nearly 10,000 people have been injured and hospitals were left overwhelmed. The earthquake compounds problems facing the impoverished nation, which is already reeling from a political crisis following the assassination of its president last month. The deadliest was the 2010 earthquake, which killed more than 200,000 people and caused extensive damage to the country's infrastructure and economy. in business, Moi University Savings Credit Cooperative Society, MUSCO SACCO, has started the process to renegotiate bank loans after the Senate voted to have its license reinstated. Last week, the Senate recommended the reinstatement of its license within 90 days to allow the members to remit, borrow, and access their savings. In 2018, the government revoked the license of Moi University SACCO and later placed it under liquidation. A Gazette notice published last year by then Commissioner for Cooperative Development, Mary Mungai, cancelled the registration of the deposit-taking SACCO and appointed 2 liquidators to take custody for a year. The SACCO was placed in liquidation after it failed to repay a bank loan borrowed from the cooperative bank due to delays in remittances.
Is here. I really want to appreciate her.
So as you encourage us to see the Cooperative Bank and all the other institutions that are involved, we'll very, very gladly work with you hand in hand, and we hope that MUSCO will flourish.
At that time when this institution was being closed, we had 54 million. The SACCO had 54 million at Moi University, non-remitted, liquid money. So you cannot tell me that an institution with 54 million is an institution to be closed. All we needed was to negotiate with the university to start remitting the money.
We realized that the decision to dissolve did not follow the procedure that was required, according to the Senate report. The reason is that the SACCO members had made their last appeal, which is normally an appeal that you start with the minister, but they were not given the opportunity to do that. And then also, we found that the SARSA was focusing on one building, and yet this SACCO is very rich. It has buildings in the main campus, and it has a membership across the nation.
And in sports, First Lady Margaret Kenyatta last night presided over a colorful opening ceremony at the 2021 World Athletics Under-20 Championships at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani in Nairobi. The event, which kicked off this morning, will feature more than 100 countries, including the refugee team and neutral athletes, who will be competing under the World Athletics flag. The First Lady, who is the patron for the global event, said that holding the World Under-20 event is a milestone for Africa and hopes more events will be held in Kenya. And the draw for the, I beg your pardon, Kenya's hope for a medal in the 4x400 meters mixed relays went up in smoke after they were disqualified for lane infringement as the World Athletics Under-20 Championships got underway at the Moi International Sports Center today. Elkanah Kiprotich had anchored Kenya to second place after an explosive exchange of leads with Nigeria. It's Bamidele Ajay who overtook Kiprotich on the home straight to win in a championship record time of 3 minutes 21.66 seconds. Meanwhile, Sylvia Chelangat and Kennedy Kimeu put behind the 4x400 meters mixed relay disappointment to reach the finals of their respective 400 meters races. The two finished second in their respective heats to book their automatic places in the finals that will take place on Saturday. The draw for the postponed 2021 Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, was conducted last evening in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The 33rd edition of the Continental Showpiece will kick off from 9th January to 6th February 2022 in Cameroon. The tournament was moved from June 30th, 2021 to January 2022 after the novel COVID-19 disrupted the initial plans. Defending champions Algeria were drawn into the Ivory Coast in a tough group for next January's Africa Cup of Nations finals, while hosts Cameroon will kick off the tournament against Burkina Faso. The final will be played at the newly built Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé, which has a capacity of 60,000. 5 cities, that is Douala, Yaoundé, Bafoussam, Garoua, and Limbe, will be holding the month-long tournament. And Robert Lewandowski scored twice as Bayern Munich beat Borussia Dortmund 3-1 to win the German Super Cup last night. Bayern keeper Manuel Neuer pulled off 2 great saves to deny Marco Reus and Erling Haaland before Lewandowski struck, arriving late to meet Serge Kroos with a powerful header that flew into the net in the 41st minute. Lewandowski set the single-season league scoring record on the final day of last season to break a 49-year-old mark held by Bayern Munich legend Gerd Müller, who died on Sunday, aged 75. Thomas Müller, I beg your pardon, added a second 4-minute after the break as Alphonso Davies broke down the left before scoring the ball into the box. Lewandowski got the slightest of touches to steer the ball into the path of Müller, who slammed it home. And that's where we wrap up Newswatch tonight. On behalf of the team, thank you so much for your valuable company and watching. My name is Tess Jenga, and my sign language interpreter is Boniface Mureithi. We leave you with the weather forecast. Have a good night. God bless you.